Alrighty. We had a finance meeting go a couple minutes late, but that's all right. So we'll go ahead and get started. It is 6:34, and call the meeting to order. Welcome to our Board Academy meeting on Monday, October 6th of 2025. Right away, I would ask for employee resignations. I would look for a motion to approve the employee resignations that were embedded. There aren't any, so we have to, Good note.
But I will say that, that's good news.
Yeah.
I thought you might want to say something there, so there actually were none, so we do not need that, I'm sorry. And then next though, we would look for a motion for the employee hires and contracts, which there were quite a few.
Highly recommends approval.
So move.
Sue? Motion by Spencer, second by Sue. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, next we'll look at the Tomah Area School District Administrative Leadership Team. We'll be doing a presentation of the Positive Behavioral Intervention and Support System, which is our PBIS, and our building level PBIS playbooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, everyone. We're looking forward to a rollout of our PBIS system. Our discussion from a previous board academy meeting was all about student behaviors, so that communication piece behind it and exactly what it is. So we'll start with a global view with the Board of Education tonight, and we'll have Justina Anderson and a few members of our administrative team walk through a presentation for you this evening. But this is only the beginning. Next month, you will have more targeted data from our panorama system. You see a very broad snapshot tonight. But then as we head into November, deeper run, and February, another run, and then your May or June presentation of that data. Also along the way will be additional presentations about some of the professional development that we have behind this. I'd like to talk more about the roles and responsibilities of some of the program systems personnel that we have. We're very fortunate to have an amazing administrative team with Justina leading our district PBIS, but in every building, PBIS meeting as well. So we have plenty of time over the next 3 to 5 months to go very deep, and the exact same information that our faculty are getting. And I've sat through a few myself over the last few years. So thank you for the journey that we're going to start tonight on this important topic. Justina, appreciate you so much starting this evening.
Just bear with me as I try to get it to share this with you. Any ideas?
Should we get to go with just slide?
Slideshow. From the beginning. And then, now we'll
Can you flip the
control P, I think it is doing okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right. So as Dr. Hansen said, we look forward to bringing you information throughout the year and kind of educate you and update you with things that we're doing in the buildings and the district throughout the year. So tonight's PowerPoint that I'm bringing to you is just very brief overview of some things that you have already heard and seen and some things that you have not if you are new to the board. So just trying to lay down the groundwork for what we're doing in our district and the work that we continue to do. So the first thing is, what exactly is PBIS? PBIS is a framework for improving student behavior and focusing more so on that positive behavior instead of punishing behavior. So at each level, elementary, middle, and high school, we have a PBIS team that meets in each building and each level. So for example, at Miller, we have a PBIS team that meets monthly, and then we also have an elementary team that meets that consists of people from every building. So every building is represented. So so that we have consistency throughout the district. And that is like that at each level of the district. We also have a district team that meets multiple times throughout the year to make sure that we are consistent and holding each other to high accountability rates. So making sure that we are looking at our data and doing things with our data and being consistent, like I said, from elementary to middle to high school. Some more background knowledge on PBIS specifically. I have the three different tiers up here. This is the same for academics as it would be for behaviors. So tier 1 is the universal learning that all students would get. So in math, second grade is working on 2-digit, adding and subtracting with regrouping. That would be the general learning that they're getting at tier 1. At tier 1 in PBIS, it would be our matrices, which you can see in our playbooks. They look very much so like this. So we're using this as our tier 1 framework. Tier 2 would be, what do we do and how do we respond when students aren't getting it? So if students aren't getting something in academics, we would pull them in a smaller group and we would reteach them in a different way to see if we can help them understand the skill we're asking them to do. The same goes for behavior. So if a student isn't getting something at tier 1 and that general level, how are we going to pull them and give them another intervention to try to help them understand in a different way? And then tier 3 is the most intensive layer, and that has even more interventions, and that is the smallest amount of students in our district for academics and for behaviors. Why PBIS matters. Again, we're focusing on the positive behaviors. We want to teach reinforcing the behaviors we want to see in our buildings instead of punishing the behaviors that we don't want to see. So that has been proven to work better if you are pointing out the students who are doing the right thing and catch them for being good. That is also great for adults to make sure that we are doing that positive reinforcement and make sure we're acknowledging those students. It helps keep us on point. So in the elementary setting, we use something called pause, and we give students pause when they are following the expectations specifically that we have laid out in the matrix. And so then that also helps us as teachers. How many positives are we giving to students versus negatives? So for every negative you give, you should be giving a certain amount of positives. So that also helps with adult learning. So we're being more proactive versus reactive with this. The district team met together and we developed this vision statement. This was made 2 years ago, and we looked at it again this September and still came to consensus that this was our vision statement for our district-wide PBIS team. So I'll give you a couple seconds to read through that. We felt like this is a great goal to work towards, and this is what we wanted the Tomah Area School District to look like. Next, we're going to look a little bit at the panorama data that we have. I wanted you to look at this chart specifically first. This chart specifically is what a healthy system would look like. And I mentioned several times before that academics and behaviors go together. So you can see on this chart on the left-hand side, we have academics, and on the right-hand side, we have behaviors, and they're the same. There's the same expectations for both sides. So this triangle shows us what a healthy system would look like. That means tier 1, we would have 80 to 90% of students. They would understand what was expected of them just with that tier 1 teaching. So just the teaching the teacher is doing every single day, those students, 80 to 90% of students would understand that. Then you go to tier 2, and that would be 5 to 10% of our students in our building would need more teaching on that specific expectation or specific standard that we are working with. So tier 2, again, that would be getting another intervention. So I would be pulling them in a small group or maybe some one-on-one support, teaching that skill a different way to try to help them understand that. And then at the very top of this pyramid is that tier 3 intensive. intervention, and that is for a very small group, 1 to 5% of students that would need that really intense support. They are still getting tier 1, tier 2, and then we would also have tier 3 label on that. So I just wanted to have you look at what a healthy system looks like before we look at our data for this current school year. So it's a little bit hard to see on here, but these are the 6 largest buildings in our district. And again, if you look at, we want a healthy system to have 80 to 90% in those green bars. And if you look across these green bars, they are all very, very close, if not meeting that expectation. The tier 2, which is the yellow bar, we would like to have 5 to 10% of our populations in those areas. And again, if you look across these, we are very close, if not meeting that. And then lastly, that very top most intensive layer is 1 to 5 students, and again, very close, if not meeting it in all of our larger buildings across the district. Something to think about while looking at this graph, lots of the things that we ask staff to do are, when looking at data, not knowing what school it is or what student is. When we ask staff to look at data, we ask to take the student names off of that data, because how we react to it should not have that, the students shouldn't impact how we react to it. So looking at this, the school shouldn't impact that. But some wonders that you could have while looking at this data is, some of our schools have more EDD programs than other schools. I wonder if those schools stick out here, or some schools have more LD, ID programs. I wonder what that behavior looks like in those schools. So those are some wonders. I wonder how attendance plays a role in this. So just some really rough data for us to look at to see how close we are and doing really well, meeting what a healthy system looks like. We talked about tier 2 supports, tier 2 interventions. We will dive deeper into this at another board meeting. But we have gotten the grace from you to go to behavior solution trainings and behavior academy trainings this past summer. And so we are digging deep into what tier 2 interventions look like specifically for behaviors in our buildings. And those are called behavior academies. So just very briefly, talking about those here, but digging deeper into those at a future meeting. So those look specific. We have very small groups of students that have met specific data, and we're following a very specific program to teach them new skills to put in their toolbox to try to help them not be in that tier 2 level, but meeting tier 1 behavior data. So we have a very strict system, and we'll explain that more in a different meeting. Also, the PBIS playbook, you got a copy of those most updated playbooks recently, I believe last week, from Dr. Hansen. So we continue to look at these and use these. The elementary, specifically PBIS team, has been meeting to see how we can adapt it to better meet what we're hearing from staff. So the flow chart that is in the elementary one looks like this, behavior flow chart. The team is now working on how can we put links in to help staff get resources that they need better, or to better understand that flow chart. That was some feedback that we had. I don't know if middle school or high school wants to talk about any changes that they made to theirs.
We will in just probably the last few.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Just kidding. So we'll brief you more about the playbooks later on in the meeting today. But we're continuing, that is the core resource for us when we're teaching tier 1 skills. Also continuing to use it and evolve it to add our tier 2 interventions in that. Professional development we'll talk about further at another meeting as well, but I just wanted to briefly talk about some things that we have done already this year. So So we've been trained on our PBIS expectations and de-escalation strategies. We're continuing to be coached. We work really closely with CISA 4 and Michelle Powell, who you have met before. Also, Juliana has been a huge piece into coaching collaborative teams, support staff groups, getting into the building and helping coach us there. We are working on digging deep this year into the classroom prevention cycle, which you can find on a flow chart as well. It's up in the corner. It says Tier 1 classroom prevention cycle. So elementary teams are digging deep into what those skills specifically look like. Middle school is digging into what is called the 4 C's, which is climate, communication, culture, and curriculum. We've been utilizing staff feedback on PD sessions. There were some things at the beginning of the school year, our new teacher in service, or back to school in service, that we got lots of positive feedback about, and staff would really like more. That's again support from CISA, and also Michelle provided a half-day training for support staff at the back to school meeting that went over really well as well. And then just next steps. And we're going to continue implementation and support. So we know we have a Tier 1 system set up, however, there's always room for growth, reflection, and changing to that. We're also continuing to push forward with our Tier 2 interventions, which, like I said, we are utilizing behavior academies. And we continue to work on upcoming trainings. We're sending another group of staff to solution tree trainings to get more information on that. And just how can the board support us when looking at the data? Our district is moving in the right direction, and many schools already fall into a healthy system. That doesn't mean the work is done. So we are going to continue to push forward to make sure that our teachers can teach and that behaviors aren't getting in the way in the classroom. Any questions or discussion?
I think it's a good thing. Obviously this is the first frontier. We have to really, I think it will have an impact on all the other things. That's why we're in agreement that it needs to be one of the high priorities. So, thank you.
Do each of the students get a playbook?
The students are offered a playbook at the beginning. Well, the staff members get playbooks at the beginning of the school year. The students get the matrices
Okay,
at the back to school meetings.
okay.
But they
Just
don't.
my question, I guess, really goes to, do the parents realize what some of the responsibilities of the children are? What we're expecting them to do?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've given this out to them
Okay.
because this is the expectations that they are expected to follow. The playbook more so is for the staff.
All right.
Yep.
Oh,
sorry.
With that playbook, thank you so much. We appreciate all of this.
Before you exit that,
Go ahead.
it's okay because I have the graph embedded in my brain. So, for that, so I know it said 2024 to 2025, and it was the green bar was close to 80% across the schools, and the red bar was 5%. The green bar was 10%. Pretty average, right? Is that over the course of the entire year? So I know like the red bar represented was at like 4 to 5 referrals. The red bar was 9+ referrals. The yellow bar 4 to 7, and then 0 to 3. So was that like that many referrals across the whole school year?
Correct.
So like the kids in the green only had 0 to 3 referrals in a school year.
Correct.
Yellow, 4 to 7 referrals in a school year. And red. And so referrals meaning referrals to
Write-ups. That would be write-ups that go on to implement campus.
okay, so can you explain to us like what constitutes a write-up? So like obviously like my kid says that the whole cafeteria got in trouble because they were instead of level 3, they were level 3 and they were supposed to be a level 0 or level 1 or whatever it was. And I was like, okay, buddy. But can you explain to us, like I'm guessing that's not gonna be a write-up, but what would a write-up,
If you
like
go
what
to-
constitutes a write-up?
Yes, yep. So that would be a great example of when we would reteach the students. Like,
Mhm.
okay, let's reteach this is a Tier 1 problem. We're all struggling with our volume during the lunchroom. We're going to reteach this If you look at the flow chart, that will more specifically tell you when a write-up would come into play. I'm trying to see.
On the elementary one for everyone, we can walk through middle school, high school, but here's the elementary flow chart.
So they're going to, and what we like to say is not a referral, but it would be like a document of reteaching. So that's what you'll see in the layers of the flow chart. So if you go to, I think it's layer 3, there's a document pattern of reteaching at Infinite Campus. That would be another way to say a referral. So I have retaught the student 2 different times, the expectation, and they still aren't getting it. So technically the 3rd time would then be a write-up or a what have I tried, I'm putting it into IC for documentation. And what are we going to do now? Do you see it on layer 3?
Yep, so I see that. So I guess I'm asking specific behavior. So like, is layer 1 for if that racial slur is bullying? I'm trying to figure out with that graph, what constitutes a write-up? Like how severe in the.
So if you look at the teacher managed side of the flow chart, so that left side, that is also going to be the left side of the 2 little columns that are in the middle. So teacher managed could be stealing inappropriate language, disrespect. Do you see that?
Yep.
So if you would have retaught that 2 different times, your 3rd time is when you're documenting it as a referral. Anything in the admin managed side would be an instant referral.
Okay. So those behaviors technically could have been happening, let's say for the red 9+, but they don't get written up till the 3rd, 2nd, 3rd. Then that happened like 27 times. They did that behavior probably like 27 times, right? Am I right?
You could potentially see that, yeah.
Right, because like it takes 3 times before they get a write-up. So if that occurred, if they got 9+ write-ups, they would have engaged in that behavior 27 times during the school year.
They might not have the same behavior each time they get a write-up.
Okay, so like it could be any behavior.
Correct. It's not just that one. So say it was stealing, it's not necessarily always going to be stealing.
Okay.
And those tier 3 students are our most intensive students, so they are probably needing a lot of support in lots of areas.
Okay. That makes sense.
Can I clarify
Yes.
something? So if a student has an officer throw over something, and then the next day does the exact same thing, we don't wait 3 more times for them to do it 3 more times.
Correct.
It's an automatic, so once we correct it through a write-up, they don't get 3 more freebies.
They don't start over.
They don't start over.
Okay.
Okay, so
That makes sense. Okay.
So in essence, they don't end up with 27, they end up with 3 or 4, correct?
it's also if a student is, I'm trying to think of a good example.
Can I try to give one?
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's like blurting, right? Elementary kids blurt out a lot. That's something that we're gonna be able to try to work at and reteach and remind. And what we're looking for is kids to self-monitor and self-correct. So if every day I'm giving a reminder, I've got some sort of system, eventually I'm going to make sure I've got that documented because we're going to be looking at it later to try to figure out how we're gonna support that kid. And I want a trail of like what we tried, where we're going, what's worked. If it's something like horseplay, a lot of times that might go in right away because there might be another kid that got hit. There might be something else that we need to follow up on. That's something that we want to make sure. Like if it comes to me, I want parents to hear from me because I don't want them to hear about that from their kids before they hear from me. So there's a little bit of how big is the behavior, what is happening, and how are we supporting that kid. If it's something like blurting, where it's just kind of a constant and easier to manage in the moment, but man, that adds up over time. That's where you might see several before we start to document the pattern of reteaching. But if I can give a look and an eyebrow and that corrects the behavior, I'm not necessarily going to document that because they were able to self-monitor and self-correct. So the documentation has a little bit of leeway because if it's something in that staff managed column that needs a direct response, it will get documented earlier to make sure that it's clear that we did something about it. The documentation is about what we did, it's not about what the student did. It's what we did to respond to it so that we can prevent it next time.
That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, is when I look at the data, right, like I'm trying to get a picture of what's going on in the schools. So I can look at that data and it can be interpreted in many different ways. It doesn't really give me, like, are those things like blurting, or are we talking like serious on the other end of the behavioral spectrum where like now we're starting to get into safety issues? Like that's what I'm trying to see in that data.
And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you get to that realm of it, everything's put in. But when it is on that side and the admin managed side, it most definitely is being put in. Anytime that we have to contact a parent, it is being documented. It's more the repetitive things in the classroom that we work with staff, and it could be, is it just me standing next to that student that will correct that behavior?
Two other playbooks as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, as you're on the middle school.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is,
Context, thank you.
So I think the biggest changes to our playbook, it looks very similar to the elementary, it's just obviously our behavior contract. And we also have a flow chart, you can see it there, it looks a little different, same thing, still has some layers to it. But again, yeah, I think it's the same as it's been, it's just the additional behavior contract for ours. You can see it, here it comes, which you've all seen.
So is that behavior contract, the one that you brought to us
Yes.
earlier this, like May or something like that?
Have you any questions for us?
I just love, I know like you guys have came and presented and I had a lot of questions and comments because this is what I do for a living. But I love how the playbook for the middle school has really come together. The behavioral contract is great. Do the students know, and I'm sorry, I apologize to everyone because I'm gonna have a lot of questions tonight, so let me just forewarn you. Does the contract do the kids know the consequences of not following the contract? So like when we go get a loan, right? Like we know when we sign that loan, you default on your payments, this is gonna happen.
We actually had team meetings or grade level meetings, and we went over the contract with all of our students.
Okay.
It's also something that when we have new students come to our building, that they're aware of in that first meeting when they come to middle school, so they get to see that as well. We also have the videos, because again, this is not tier 1, obviously, so there's a lot of teaching and learning that has to happen before we jump to a contract. So all the videos, the tier 1 level PBIS learning happens as well. So our goal is to get those linked onto our website, so that can be part of the learning, as they can watch the silly videos and the fun things that Ms. King and the kids did to learn the expectations of middle school.
Love it. Love what you guys did with it. That was my only question.
Any other questions?
anything else for Amy's?
Well, has it actually started? Because I know you said 4 weeks, it was gonna be kind of a learning and figuring it all out. So has that process started now?
We have 5 students on a contract right now.
Okay.
3 meetings set up. The beauty of it is, like, and Amy can attest to it, because Amy does, I sat in on the first meeting, but Amy has obviously led the rest of them, so I'll let her talk, but it's actually been a beautiful experience with families, actually, ironically.
So I anticipated behavior contract family meetings being a little bit intense. And I have walked away from every single meeting with it being a positive, and twice parents have thanked me. So we have a students on a contract for a variety of reasons. I am really excited because one of the things that come out of it is how are we gonna celebrate when you find success? We have one student who, she really wants to be a part of the JROTC program at the high school. And her halfway mark was last Friday, but with homecoming, that was crazy. So this week, I'm taking her over to meet Coach C and Coach Fox. I call him Coach, sorry. And they're very excited to be able to share that because it's something that she wants, and then they're going to add in like what they're looking for in a cadet and how that mixes. Every kid has a different celebration and what they're looking for. I think I really stress we need to be a team and the communication now. And I stress to parents that if your student had a bad morning, something happened, pet died, something is going on, I want to know because I want to be able to be the first person to get to that student versus nobody knowing and then we have a catastrophic day. We have students on a variety of different steps. When you get a form of suspension, you start on a step 3 and it takes a little bit longer to be able to celebrate. We have a few students on step 1 and then like we said, 3 meetings set up. So far they've been very good. Students don't necessarily love them. They all know about them when they come to my office and we talk about you remember when we talked about this? I would say the biggest thing that students don't like is when they go to athletic events, if you're on a step 3, you have to sit with your parent. And they don't like turning in their cell phone every day. But we have a great system for that that's been working really well.
What system, in general, do you have to support the subs that come in? And I meant to ask this for elementary too. To support the substitutes that come in that don't know these children and don't know what's going on and stuff. Do you have a way if these students are misbehaving in their class and being rude and really disrespectful, do you have a way of getting that help for that sub?
So I would say 2 main ways. Number 1, they always have a phone number to call. For support from the main office or a counselor will go and get that student or try to intervene within the classroom. At the middle school, we have an ALEC room and students can be sent out. We make sure that when subs come in, they get their pass, they get the schedule, they get all of the papers that they need. One of those papers is a pack of ALEC room slips so that they know that students can go to the ALEC room. The one thing that we've learned is we have to include the ALEC room phone number. Just because if they don't have a pass, they can just call and let the ALEC room teacher know that they're coming. But that's one thing that we have learned. We have to just make sure that we're also giving.
We also do a lot of proactive. There are some kids that we know when it's a totally different environment with a person in there. So we've actually created plans with kids where if there's a sub in the room, today you're gonna work in the main office or you're going to work in the ALEC room and try to be a little proactive instead of the reactive because we don't want our subs to have to handle that as well.
We did invite ourselves to the beginning of your
Right.
training to trauma-informed care and all of that. So
Yeah, and
the majority of them came.
I saw that, but I was just wondering for those people who couldn't be there and all of that, so if there's some supports there.
High school, which was the way we got Dr. Reed and assistants, Adams and
Alright, good evening. As you know, I'm still learning a lot about these things and my colleagues are here to help me out. First, do you have any questions? For high school. A lot of things are very similar to what the middle school is doing. The one thing that I don't think we have done is the contract.
No.
Yeah. So I just learned about that from Amy and I'm thinking about how we can embed that into our behavior strategies as well. But we are still talking about how that's going to be implemented. I came from a school district that we did that with a behavior contract, and it's a little bit different from high school to middle school because of the age and the level. At high school, we tend to be faster and more, more serious about their behavior. So we don't have. I mean, when I talk to students, I say you're so smart in high school. Why do you have to talk about this every single day? And so far, it's been very good. And if you look at our data, the number one problem is still cell phone. Our teachers have done a great job posting the rules and reteaching the strategies every day. But we still have a few kids who continue to take their phone out and then have to address it before they put it away. So, with that said, I have never met a group of students that is so compliant like this. Our students are so respectful, even when they do that, it take only one signal like this and they put it away. So, our teachers have complained about the repetitive behavior, but it's not very major. It's very, very small things. It's like putting your phone on the table instead of putting in your pocket. Simple things like that. So you have anything to say about that?
No, I mean, the other bigger change that we have, along with behavioral academies that other schools are doing, we have at the high school basically our tier 1 PBIS committee that we meet twice a month. And we now have our tier 2 PBIS team that are meeting twice a month. Obviously, just September so far. But those are the times that we start looking at our data to see who are our kids that we may need to start gradually pulling into our academies. And so I know as of right now, we've got 3 students that are on academies full time. 2 are at least 2 weeks into it. The third one, I need to meet with the student. I just need to set that up. Last week with homecoming, today was kind of an adventure. So I needed to meet with them today, push that till tomorrow. I can at least meet with them and figure out times that are gonna work for him, make sure he's not being pulled for like typical time for academic supports, but I can meet with him and go through those academies processes with him. So again, the academies are gonna be, I think, a very promising addition to our strategies that we have, that we can start taking those kids on a larger scale and really work on very targeted behaviors and try to work through those things with them to set them up for more support.
In addition to the cell phones, our largest behavior, ironically, is tardies. So we're working with one of our behavior academies is motivation, and working with trying to get them there on time, and that's always a different caveat when you get to high school and many of our students are driving. So we're working with them and talking through what it is that is hindering them from getting there on time, and really starting to get to the core reason for the behavior, so we can help them through it. So is it a matter of not setting an alarm? Is it a matter of sleeping through an alarm, or having to take a sibling somewhere and then getting stuck in traffic? What is it? Most of ours are getting to school the first thing in the morning. We have just 1 or 2 students where we've gotten to the point where they are tardy at different points in the day, and we'll be addressing those as well. So we are addressing them individually to get to the heart of the reason, and then as we're working through it, we'll be using the academies and the motivation academy.
And I think another thing that we need to do, and I say we need to do, is parent involvement. I don't think our high school parents are involved enough the way that I would like to see. For example, when you hear parents say, "I don't know that, I don't know this," I think we need to work harder on that area, and we want.
I think one thing that I hear too is, as you look at the flow chart, whether it's teacher managed or administration, I see support. And that's, the teacher doesn't feel like they're all alone, or if there's a cell phone issue, for example, that they're covered, that you have their back. And I think that's a very good thing.
I think we work very closely with our teachers, and they feel supported.
I think the parent involvement is important all across the board, not just high school, but all across the board. We need help from them.
This is not just our community, it's all over the world, the country, and whoever does better. My experience is that when you have 85% of the parents engaged with the communications and with the implementation of strategies at school, it works. So right now, I'm being new here, I start to see the areas that I think we need to work on, and we will find time to engage the parents so that they get to help us out with even high school students, right? I remember my son did not want to wake up until I told what is his face on the bed. So I think it's like that. Most of our students are still kids. They are teenagers, and so we just need our parents to help us out.
I think the other thing that's great to see is hearing all this, and it's a prime example because you're all here. Basically the entire administrative team is here tonight.
Right.
And I think that's a huge thing for all of you is just like consistency, not only within our buildings, but within our entire districts. I know that was has been some complaints, that, this teacher allows this, and this teacher does this, and this teacher, and it's, or this building, or this whatever, and it's very important. I think you guys are headed in the right direction. It sounds fantastic. So thank you for presenting all that and continuing to improve.
November's night will be the data. Thank you.
So I do have just a question in general, not necessarily just for the high school. So one, the parental involvement. So how we kind of got to this point, just in case anyone doesn't know. So we looked at the parent and staff surveys, and we kind of collaborated. We did collaborate, and we decided that our main two focuses were behavior and what was the other one? Communication. Okay. So those are the two. Of course, behavior is the one that stuck with me, but behavior and communication. So obviously the behavior sounds like things are headed in the right direction. I have heard some things at elementary level that are very concerning that I think would be interesting to know, like, if everyone's on the same page. So Mike talked about like the consistency. Like, it'd be interesting to see if I said this behavior is happening, how would you address it? If everyone would address it pretty consistently, or if different team members are gonna address it differently. If that makes sense. The second thing with the communication, one thing that I hear a lot from parents of everyone, just in the community as a whole, is that they want to be involved, they don't know how. So I've actually met with a lot of parents lately that we kind of troubleshoot what's going on with their kiddo, and they're like, well, I don't know what's going on at school. I'm like, have you contacted the teacher? But I know Class Dojo is a huge thing. Like, not all teachers use Class Dojo, so that's hard, but letting parents know, because some parents want to be involved. They want to have that open line of communication with the teachers, but one, they're either not sure that they can or they don't know how. So I think that there's like a disconnect in the communication where the teachers want parents to be involved, the parents want to be involved, but how do we break that gap so that the parents can have that communication? I'm very fortunate. I have a very good relationship. My kid's principal was my husband's football coach when he was younger. I'm good friends with the teachers there. So like, I'm very fortunate that I have a really good relationship and I know everything that's going on. I tell their teachers all the time that if they're disrespectful or if they do something that's not nice, I will happily come sit next to them all day in school and call them nicknames and embarrass them in front of all their friends. So hopefully they're pretty well behaved because they assured me they don't want that to happen. But that's my perspective, and not all parents have that ability to do that. So maybe just kind of brainstorming ways that we can kind of help close that gap so that parents can be involved. Not that you guys don't have a million things to do anyways, but they do want to be involved. They do want to help.
Like the open house we had on August 20th was a good start. We had food served, and the food service provided food for everyone. Mm-hmm. And that was a good turnout. It was a good start to meet with the parents and talk about these items, provide a few sessions about expectations. And I think we're going to have to do more of those. And also, we cannot just focus on negative activities. We also need to focus on positive things like reading nights, math, and support them as well, because normally our students who don't do well do not want to come to see us after school or before school, right? Mm-hmm. So we create opportunities for parents to listen to us, we are a little concerned about their education, and that's why Dr. Nasser was talking about motivation. We want our students to feel that they are capable, they can do the work that we expect them to do, and they can. They're just teenage, so we have to work hard on getting that done. So thank you. Now we need more parents like you.
Well, you know.
I'm just gonna, so when
Yeah.
and I can speak for the middle school, we've been targeting parent communication more. So for instance, we're lucky, I'll stand up so we can start. We're lucky because we have collaborative teams, and then we have like team 6-1, team 6-2, right? And so this year they're very focused in creating goals as a team on the 4 C's, and every team has a communication goal of some sort. So some teams they've created logs, and it's their goal is every week to call 2 different parents with something positive. So they'll start a team meeting 10 minutes late so that they can call families and then come back. So they're doing those types of things. Our focus obviously is calling when there's things that aren't going well, but I also think that has been a situation in the past. It takes work, and from a teacher's perspective, we want parents, when you say like teachers want parents involved, they do. I think we just also have to be cognizant of the sense a certain time.
Right.
The field, they're very worried. Like, so Amy, Jared, and I are like, we will make those phone calls with you. But there's still a lot of, a lot of concern of what are we going to get on the other end, and knowing that they're making a phone call during their prep. They can't have a 45-minute conversation, and that's kind of what happens sometimes. So there's just, I think everybody's actively working towards communicating with families. It's just, we're working through some past worries, I'll say, of how it's going to be perceived when we call. But I don't think I've heard of many at all of communications where it's been negative or like contentious. It's just, there's always that worry for them. Whereas for us admin, we're used to that. That's kind of our job. But for a teacher, I'm going to teach and go to prep and get possibly yelled at, and then go back and have to be ready to be in front of 30 kids again in 10 minutes. So we're working through that with our teachers. So just so you're aware.
Yeah, no, I know Sue and I have talked before, like just randomly about like the parents, and I do a lot of parent training with the parents, because I always say what we teach in clinic is, if it's not at home too, we're not going to see that progress, right? So like getting the parents involved, unfortunately, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of parents that are just trying to make ends meet, there's a lot of different dynamics in today's world. So I mean, I know it's not going to work, and you're going to have the parents that are maybe misunderstanding, or they're upset about something, or that want to have 45-minute conversations. But I would say overall, I just think getting the parents involved would really.
Do the elementary schools here, do you guys still have PTOs? I mean, it was PTAs in our day. Are they pretty well attended, where parents, I mean, that's a good way for parents to at least make a connection with the school.
And I think it depends school to school. Sorry, I didn't see Justina standing up back there. I'll stand up in the middle. I think it's probably a little bit different in each building. I will say in both mine, we send out things when our PTO meetings take place. Both of mine have been very strong. In fact, Warren's, I think we're up to like 7 or 8 parents that are showing up to every PTO meeting, which is great, because we've had years at different buildings where it's like same 3 people are there all the time. So yes, I think all of us have a active PTO in our building. Some are maybe stronger than others, but we all have them going. Yeah. So.
But for me, I'm thinking back, of course, that was a long time ago when I had kids in elementary school. We'd have 20 parents. Like when you say 7, they're really well attended, and I'm thinking, that's not very good. But I guess it's all relative.
But in today's economy, you almost have to have 2 working parents. So I feel like it's just a different change, because my mom was the same way. My mom was on the PTO or PTA all my years of school, but like today's world, again, the dynamics have just shifted so much.
I do have a question for you, on communication, not negative communication, because that's all we've been talking about is behavioral communication. But on the other hand, when you have, social events or, sporting events, do you put out, I've requested as a parent when my son was going to school here, a newsletter once a month saying these are the events that are going on. Here's the football schedule for this week, either weekly or it was monthly. I can't remember when he was attending a different high school, but here nothing, and so I never knew what was going on. It was very frustrating.
I just started the monthly newsletter.
Okay.
So the newsletter covers all positive things.
Okay.
Only. There's nothing but negative.
Like the homecoming and homecoming week and the before it happens, not after.
Right.
Okay. Good.
So our newsletter will cover the things that happen and the things that will be happening. So it's both communication and also provide our parents with information that we have done. So it includes, we will have schools of the month and staff of the month recognition as well at high school. And so we provide information about the students and the staff as well.
How is that sent out? Through the parent email?
We are infinite campus.
Okay.
I think in today's world, like we've talked about some of the negatives of technology, but in today's world, it's so easy to communicate with a monthly newsletter, but also Facebook posts. And Katie had mentioned Dojo and emails, and we can text. Like we have the ability to communicate so easily with our families, which back when we were in school, it was just like the copies of paper that you hold right at home. So that has been a lot different, and that is a positive, trying to use those resources to help with that positive communication and keeping parents informed.
And you talk about communication. I think the most successful communication is meeting with parents and having time to show them that we really do listen to them and have that exchange of ideas. So far, I met with 4 or 5 parents. Every time they call about something, I say, "Please come over, let's sit down and talk about it." And every time we met, they left the office happy, which is important to me. So having that time to be with them, talk about it, and so many times we also learn from them about how to help the children at school. So that's one thing that I appreciate my 2 colleagues here for. Making phone calls almost every day, that helps so much too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not, it would probably be to Justina.
Sure.
Hey, Justina, I have a question. Is there like a differential, like layering that the staff uses, like to identify the difference between, because we talked about it in the beginning, kind of like everybody is kind of like, you're thinking that they're all on the same kind of like spectrum. Like, do we identify kids that maybe identify on the autism spectrum?
A great thing about PIS is that it can be utilized for every student. So every student can learn the same way, and we just teach every student the same skills on those matrices. So we talked about how in our academics, we don't want to create different levels or drop the bar for any student, and that goes the same for our expectations as well. So we would want all students to meet the same expectations. We may just need to have some different interventions in it to help students meet those expectations, if that makes sense. So I might need to provide somebody on the autism spectrum with, say, a visual schedule to help remind them how to behave appropriately in the hallway. Or I might have to read them a social story before we go to use the bathroom so they remember what the expectations are in the bathroom. So we can provide different interventions and tools for all students to help them meet those expectations. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, I was just kind of like, I'm just thinking of like, there's a difference between a neurological response, right? And then also, you know, like, just that behavioral response too, you know?
So some things I thought about too are my students who maybe they are yelling in the hallway. Could it be because it's too noisy in the hallway?
Right.
Could it be because the lights are flashing for them? And what are tools can I give to that student to help them still meet those expectations? Do they need headphones? Do they need sunglasses?
Right.
Maybe they need to be at the front of the line and not the back of the line. So still holding that high expectation for all students, but giving them the tools that they need to be successful.
Okay. Because I was thinking of like how sensory, especially, could be misinterpreted, right?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I'm not looking at you. That's defiance.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
So that's what I was wondering of how are those tools being utilized in the classroom so your teachers feel empowered to be able to use that and, you know, step in without having to get to that intervention level right away or the write-up.
Yep. And what I see too a lot is I'll have teachers come, they'll ask for like, can you come in and observe? Like maybe there's something I missed and we'll brainstorm together. Like this is something I've noticed and I think would really benefit this student.
Appreciate you, thank you.
Yeah.
Why not? Let's go on.
Yeah, we're all good.
I have all kinds of things, but I think.
Did that just stem in your head a little bit? Yeah.
Alright,
Some people won't get going, some people just
I
keep going.
understand.
alright, we'll look at, next is the District Safety and Security Board of Education Review.
I'm just gonna give you a short presentation, based on what all adults in our buildings received and our students received too as far as school safety goes. So we have common language, for any type of crisis that could happen in any of our buildings. And so we will be going through if there is a fire or evacuation or, there's something outside that's not healthy or safe, or there's something inside of our building. So we're just gonna quickly go through them, for you too, so you kind of have an understanding. Our district has a comprehensive school safety guide that we updated last year. We brought that to the board looked at that and approved the updates on it. It was created back in 2013, and we have just slowly evolved, with it, using best practice. We do have building access protocols and annual action items that we do every year. And building access protocols basically mean if you're in our building, you have a badge. Whether it's a staff badge, a visitor badge, a volunteer badge. If you are coming into our buildings to work on the HVAC, the school secretary or principal's got a phone call saying so-and-so's coming from some business to what they're doing. So we do not have people in our buildings that don't have a purpose to be there. And when our doors are open, like before school starts, all of our doors that are opened are unlocked, are being monitored by an adult as people are coming in and out of them. And then annual action items such as making sure all of our staff are trained. One of them, making sure we have our safety protocols in the back of our doors. Our principals and our teachers ensure that those things are happening in all of our buildings. We do use the I Love You Guys Foundation materials. These are free resources for any school district in the country to use. They were developed by parents of a child that was killed in Colorado many, many years ago, and they've made it their mission to educate as much as they can so that other parents don't have to go through what they've gone through there the past 20 years. They've also branched out to include businesses. They have the standard response protocol, and those are the protocols we're going to quickly go through. But all school districts in Monroe County go through the same trainings for the same protocols. Monroe County shares and has worked hard to help all of the school districts be on the same page. Tomah was the first district to have the standard response protocol, and the others have since all joined. Tomah Health was also training in standard response protocol, so all of that language is the the same for them also. We had a summer training this year that involved, any district that really wanted to come. We had about 45 people from around the state with along with our administrators. And, I just had privileged to sit next to the Monroe County dispatchers. They knew the language of what they were talking about. So the county has done a good job of informing them. And our police department here in town has, helped us. They helped us do our trainings. Chief Patterson actually did our staff training this year at the high school for all of our staff. So we have a really good, working relationship with all of our emergency management. So the standard response protocol, again, there is not a crisis that could happen in or around the building that one of these protocols won't fit for it to be safe. So again, that shared language, all of our staff, all of our students, also are trained from our littles up to our seniors, and then resources are shared with parents about using the protocols that we go through. So standard response protocol, there are 5 different responses, and I'm just going to quickly go through them. The first one is hold, and this simply means that there's something happening in the building that we don't want people in the hallway. 9 times out of 10, there is some sort of medical emergency happening, or vomit, or a student is dysregulated and just needs space. And the worst thing that we could do is clog the hallways with people. So when you hear that there's a hold going on in a classroom or in a building, there's not danger. We simply do not want students and staff in the hallway while whatever is happening is cleaned up. Most of the time it's cleaned up. We also have secure. This means you get inside the buildings, you make sure that your outside doors are locked, which all of our doors are locked all the time. And things that happen because we go into a secure, if there's a crime happening in the neighborhood, we've had a couple schools that have had to go into secure, which means everything in the building stays the same. Students change classes, they go to lunch, they use the bathroom when they need to, same with staff. We just don't go outside for recess or for ESS class or anything like that. We've had animals on our playground where we had to go into secure, and we just can't be outside. We do monitor these closely if they are police involved, because we realize that our building could be in danger if, depending on what it is. Most of the time, if there's a secure that involves the community, the police have notified us and said such and such is happening 2 blocks away. We recommend that you go on a secure, and we obviously then do that. We also have evacuate. This would be we just call them fire drills. You're evacuating the building for a purpose. Most of the time, like I said, they're fire drills, but we could evacuate for several years ago, Warrens had evacuated their entire building because they had a burning smell. They couldn't find what it was, so they joined another school for about 4 hours or so. They had a good burning time, and then they went back because they found a squirrel where it wasn't supposed to be, that was no longer alive. So evacuations, like you said, are normally type things like fire drills. Then we also have shelter. We can have 2 kinds of shelter. Obviously, if there's severe weather, we're going to have a shelter for tornadoes, and then also hazmat if we have a chemical spill or something in our urban railroads. All of our schools are near railroads, so all of our classrooms on the back of their door have a go kit, and within that go kit are things to seal off doors and vents in the event of a hazmat emergency. And then the last one is lockdown, and this means there is danger in our building. All of our students, again, from the very littles to the seniors, are trained on what this is, what you do. Our teachers and our administrators are very good at talking to students and bringing these up. We have scripts that even with the littles we use. And I can remember way back when we first started doing lockdown, and very uncomfortable, conversation to have with students. And I recall the first year, I think the principals did it in all the buildings, with all of the classrooms. But what we quickly learned is that even the littles, they hear, they know what's going on in other schools, they've heard what a lockdown is. They have ideas, many of their parents have talked to them about, here's what you do if something happens at school. So, we are doing best practice here in our district, and we're training all of our adults and all of our students, in that best practice. And probably one of our best practices that we do is that we try to be, proactive. And that is with our Speak Up and Speak Out. It's created by the Department of Justice and School Safety, and anyone, students or adults, can either phone in, email in, or text in a tip for something happening at or around school, or it could be involving just their friend. That's mainly what our tips have been over the course of the last 3 years. There's been another student who's been concerned with one of their classmates, either for violent type things happening to them, or eating disorder, or they just need to talk to someone who's concerned about them. And one thing that's wonderful about this is that, well, it's free to schools. The other thing is that there's a live person that's answering every single tip. And if it is something very, very serious, they are reaching out to the appropriate people. We had an instance a couple years ago when there was a school violence thing tipped in by a community member. And I got a phone call at home at 8 o'clock at night, along with the school principal had a phone call at the same time. There was another person calling them, and a third person was talking to the donor. It turned out to be not something that wasn't, it wasn't blown out of context, it was misheard. But because of the threat, it was taken very, very seriously, and the appropriate people were notified, like, within seconds of the tip coming. We've had where we had another school, the police were called because a community member called in something, and immediately there's a response. So I feel very confident that if we use this system, it does help with helping those individual students, but then also as a whole. Just to go back to a couple of these things, all of these resources are online for anyone to go and look at and to use and to review with their students or their children. And I know the police department would love if there's any other businesses in town that would like to use the same protocol, that they would help facilitate doing that. Questions? One of the requirements of the Department of Justice, the Office of School Safety, is that every year we have to upload certain things to them. One of them being that we are doing our violent lockdown drills. We also have to upload our sign-in sheets for our school safety, things that we do at the beginning. We have to do routines, which means we saw the sign-in sheets. So tonight I did bring with me every fall, and then January, February, all of our buildings do a lockdown drill. And they document what happened, how it happened, and then those reports are uploaded to the state in January. So I did bring those with. If you have any questions about those, this time I could also answer them.
I read through them, and I was pleased. Several of the buildings, they actually cited some various things, feet or lights or whatever it was. That gives it credence, because otherwise it's just another thing. That means that it's being taken very seriously. I like that person that checked them off.
I also like that there was a couple where the police were involved in a great way, so that was nice too. I think that.
I would say that if we can get the police involved in more of those, I just think that the younger kids, if they're there, make them feel safer, but yet if we actually had something catastrophic and they seen police, it might throw them off, not knowing, why are they here, or, those kinds of things. So I would just think we need to focus more on, and I know it's hard, but I think to make sure that they do see that there's police presence and things like that.
We often have police officers visiting our schools, even our outlying schools. Junior County and Monroe County have really stepped up in the last few years visiting them. If you were driving by our schools, you'll often see police that are out there greeting kids or in the parking lot, talking to parents and things like that. They do all train in all of our buildings, so they're aware of all of what our buildings look like. And I know at the elementary level, they do take turns. I don't know, in January, a couple schools will invite them to come in. And again, it does depend on schedule, but it's a great idea.
I was glad to see too that the parents were notified that there was a drill, so they can open up some conversations at home about what to do and how the parents feel about all of this too. Just kind of keep it.
Can I say something quick? So first of all, one of the earlier slides, so one of the things that we all provide too is we provide that language to parents at the beginning of the year too, so they know those terms, hold, secure, lockdown, what those things mean, they're provided. And so one of the other things I wanted to say though was specific to Monroe County, and I'm gonna echo something that Michelle said. 5-6 years ago, I frankly would only see law enforcement when I needed them. But now they are stopping at our O-line schools so frequently, and I know that they do in town too, but like this morning, just this morning, I had a newer officer from Monroe County. He actually came in and said, hey, can you show me around the building just so I can kind of familiarize myself where things are? And so I took 15 minutes or whatever this morning, walking around and showed him everything, and he had a building map and everything. So he was a newer gentleman and just really wanted to make sure that he had kind of a layout of the school, in case he ever needed to come in for any reason. So that was pretty cool that they took those steps to, make sure that they were educated on how they could help us if they ever needed to. So I just wanted to mention that.
Huge shout out to the law enforcement, because I know Monroe County, we've had, I think it was when my oldest had his heritage fair, one of the sheriffs was actually one of the judges of the heritage fair. So they're very involved in our schools. I know Tomah Police does a fantastic job at our in-town schools, so I think they're just super involved with our students. We get emails quite often saying if you see law enforcement presence, don't be alarmed. Which is nice that the parents are informed that there's no emergencies, that our law enforcement is involved in the prevention side, so that we hopefully never have to use them for that emergency. But I just wanted to give them a shout out, because I think that's a huge thing. They don't have to do that.
Yeah, we need a people down and I need to sign.
So could I get a motion to approve those reports that were presented to us?
So moved.
Motion by Teresa, second by Katie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright, unanimous. Alright. Last thing we have tonight would be the final review and approval of the proposed 2025-2026 school year budget in preparation for the upcoming annual meeting.
So you do have a packet also in front of you that might be a little easier to follow along with than just reading it, whatever works for you. And I did have, I don't know if there's any still left out there for community members, but there are some there. And of course, if you want a full copy, that.
I have, maybe one more thing, they can have these. I have it on the.
So I just wanna quickly go through some, budget assumptions and unknowns that things that you have seen before. This is just a review. That when we're building the budget for our school year, we're looking at the salary range, our revenues and our expenses, and then also the state of Wisconsin's budget is working on the. And we also have unknown type things. Many or most of these things we now know, and we'll go through those tonight. But when you were first presented with this, we did not know the general aid estimate, we did not know pupil count, we did not know property values. And we do now know two out of three of those things, so we're gonna go through those tonight before we go through some numbers. So I just want to, our student count from this September. So school districts receive revenues based on how many full-time equivalent students they have. And I'll explain what that means as we go on. Between this summer and last year's preliminary intercession, we had 135 full-time equivalent students, and that gets added to our revenue limit, and I'll show you what that is in a little bit. So on our revenue limit, those 135 summers and intercession students, we get to claim 40% of them every year. So you'll see we claim 54 this year. So our student count for September, I'm gonna start with the preschool line that's up there. You can see that resident student count, so this is not our, these are not our open enrolled out or in students from other districts, they're just our students. We have 29 preschool students. They count for 0.5 or half of a full-time equivalent student. And so the prorated student count is 14.5, and DPI always rounds up. And so we have 15 full-time equivalent students in preschool. And then if you look at our 4K, there's 128, and they count for 0.6 of a full-time equivalent student. And so rounded up, that means we have 77 full-time equivalent students in 4K. Now when you get to kindergarten, you can see there's 182 kindergartners, they count for 1. So there's 182 full-time students in kindergarten. And then in grades 1 through 12, they also count for 1. So there's 2,732 students in grades 1 through 12, and that counts for full-time equivalent students. So if you take the 15, the 77, the 182, and the 2,732, that's where you come up with 3,006 as our full-time equivalent students for this year. The obvious question then is, how does that compare to last year? And so when we look at this, get bigger so you can see it back there. So the first column where it says 29, those are preschoolers. Compared to last year, we had 31 preschoolers. This year we have 128 4Kers. Last year we had 152. And one of the questions we had in Board of Finance was, well, that number went down from last year, and we went to full day 4K, and we brought 4K full day 4K to you because we could see in April and May that numbers were declining in that area, and the reason being, we believe is that our parochial schools have full day 4K, and they've had it now for 2 years, I believe. And so we went from 90-some students in May to the 128 4Kers now. So it is a decrease from last year, but by the board making the decision to go to all day for 4K, I think you gathered a few more students between May and the beginning of the school year. Kindergarten went from 182 to 196, and again, I personally feel that is partly to do is that we did have a group of students that normally their families would come to public school, but because 4K was often all day at our private schools, they believe that we had some families choose that, and they're happy where they're at, and we're happy that they're happy, so but they stay there for kindergarten. And then our grades 1 through 12 has stayed exactly the same as last year, which I found very bizarre. So we went and redid all the numbers again, and it is. It's a coincidence that it's the same number. So you can see that our district overall is down about 40 students from last year. Most of them being at or all of them being at So you're gonna see those numbers here again in a little bit. The other thing, the last time we looked at the budget that we did not know, that came out on October first, was property values for the Tomah Area School District. And so up on the chart, you can see those are our 22 municipalities that make up the Tomah Area School District. And this year's equalized value, or their property values, are $2,609,018,788. That's an increase in value in the district of $238 million. And that number will become very important when we talk about the potential levy that was set at the beginning of the meeting. So again, you're gonna see that number again. The next thing in your booklet is the revenue limit worksheet that all school districts utilize. And some of the numbers we've talked about, the pink numbers here, those are our student counts. Remember, we had 135 FTEs for summer school and intersession. You get 40% of them, so 54 is what we can capture this year. The 3,006 students, full-time equivalent students, we add those two numbers together and you get 3,060. Now, the state takes a 3-year rolling average for these, so they're gonna take 3,119, add to 3,087, add to 3,060, divide by 3, and that's where they come up with the average of our district for the last 3 years of 3,081 or 89 students, full-time equivalent students. And the state has something that's called safe harbor, so when your district fluctuates in enrollment and it goes down, they kind of recoup that for you for 1 year. So because our FTEs went down by 4 students, that $46,600 is going to be added to our revenue limit for just this coming year. If our district maintains enrollment or goes up next year, that will all be blank. And some of the things that, the colors on here, DPI, everything that's yellow, DPI put in, everything that is green kind of gets auto-populated, and then the district puts in the pink things that are up there. And eventually, the whole thing will be yellow and green because DPI will double check everything and put that in. So that pink number is the property values, and again, that was the number I just shared with you, the $2.6 billion for our district. So then if we come on to the other side, so some of the numbers that you've seen before and how they come up with everything, they're gonna take our average of 3,093 students, they're gonna multiply that by the per pupil amount, which for this year is 11,650. They're going to multiply that out, and that's where they're gonna come up with that 35,986,850. And again, these are all auto-generated by numbers that you can put in. I just want to bring you to this next big section where it's 2.5 million. These are assumptions that get added into our revenue limit. So the 2.5 million is our operational referendum. The 46,600 is the safe harbor for losing students. The 194,532 is the chargeback that we received last year from the Township of Greenfield. The $680,000 and the $53,000 numbers, those are best estimates right now of what our private school vouchers are adding to our revenue limit. And again, those will eventually be filled in by DPI. They do student counts, private schools do student counts just like we do, and that information will be filled in by DPI, so that'll be a higher number. Though that again is an estimate based on what our last few years of history has been with vouchers. So when you add all of those things up, it comes up to 39,462,343. Then back on July 1st, we had a general aid estimate. And if you remember, our revenue limit is how much money the district has for operations. It's made up of two things. It's made up of the general aid that we get from the state plus local property taxes. So when you add those two together, you come up with the total revenue limit. So back in July, our estimate for the district to receive from the state for general aid was $25,239,533. The real number will come out October 15th, and that's the last bit of information that we really don't know for sure. And general aid numbers it'll be close to this. Chances of it being exact are slim and none, because the final numbers are based on really how much all districts in the state of Wisconsin spent last year. And so the state takes that all in, they take all that information, and then they give you the best estimate that they can on July 1st, but because school districts are still going to do audits and things like that, the final numbers aren't really known until October 15th. On October 15th, that number will be accurate, so we will know exactly what our levy will be. And it will be close, but again, it won't be 100% until we get that number. So if nothing were to change before now in the annual meeting, even though the general aid amount is going to somewhat fluctuate, our local property tax impact would be $13,785,694, and that would equivalent into a 0.00528386 levy rate, which comes from, that would be about $528 per $100,000 of property. If you recall, last year the number was $551. We'll go through that at the very end, when we go through the entire budget to how that's arranged there. Questions before I go on to the nitty-gritty? All right, so page 5, this is just a summary of everything that we're gonna talk about. So we're gonna skip this page because these are just, like I said, line item numbers. We're gonna go through where all of these numbers came from. If you recall, the last time we presented this, I did a line by line for you, and I said the next time we present it for the annual meeting, I'll highlight just the parts that were changed. So the parts we're gonna go through will be just the pink highlighted, because those are the only things that really have changed since we last spoke. So the very top number, the local property tax, $13,785,694, and the second pink number there, the $25,239,533. Those were the two numbers I said are going to change on the revenue limit. So when you approve the budget to go to the annual meeting, there'll be an understanding that those two numbers are going to slightly change because general aid will come out on October 15th. Another change from last time is the other state revenue. We had estimated prior to the end of last school year that the youth apprenticeship grant would be roughly the same. We now believe it's probably going to go down about $23,000, so that's why that's changing. And then Title I revenue, we can't determine, the state doesn't determine what the revenue is until they see our teachers that are hired and so their salary and their fringes and all of that. So we know those numbers now, so we believe our Title I revenue will be about $24,000 more than we anticipated coming back in May. And then if you look at the next, and again, that's all of our general fund, Fund 10, of the operating monies for the district. On page 7, the top, Fund 27, that's our special ed. And remember, special ed is an account that at the end of the school year, it has to be 0. And we do not get reimbursed for special ed services 100%, more about 33%. And so we are estimating that at the end of the school year, we'll have to transfer $5,069,000 into Fund 27 from the general fund, Fund 10, to make it zero. And that, we lowered that estimate because of, now we know salaries and fringes and everything, and so we don't believe it'll be quite as much as what we thought. On special ed, the other two special grants, IDEA and preschool, again, those are determined after we match our expenses, after salary and fringe are updated, so that's numbers that include our current staff. Fund 29 is our Indian Education Fund, and again, those revenues need to match the expenses, so after we update salary and fringe, there's that $400 difference. And then Fund 50 at the bottom, that's food service. I already talked to you about, we believe we may have to transfer some money from Fund 10, our general fund, into Fund 50, our food service fund, to bring that to zero at the end of the year. So we're estimating that to be about $51,000. The next set of numbers, the $372,000 and the $43,500, those were updated by Mr. Bender, our Director of Food Service, and those are based on the increases that the board approved for lunch and breakfast. And then the bottom two pink ones, again, this is the aid that we'll receive for breakfast and lunch. And again, these are updated for Mr. Bender after the increase in reimbursement rates were published. Questions? Then page 8 are just the grants pulled out. So I'm sorry for the audience not following along here. The grants, we already talked about all of these, but I just pulled out the grants so you could actually see the grants our district receives. But we've talked about all of these already and why they changed. All right, onto our salary budget. And obviously our salary budget is going to change in all areas because the last time we talked about this, we had not done the 3% increase for staff, and people retired and left the district, and we hired new people. So now these are all updated with accurate our current staff. And most of the time, the places that you see kind of bigger changes typically are because of our health insurance costs. If you have one teacher drop health insurance or take health insurance for a family, it's about $20,000. So when you see, like for example, if you look at Warren's Elementary, they only had a budget difference of $2,536. So that tells me their insurance, everything else there kind of stayed the same. That was simply just a change in the staff number, or was it a 3% increase? Things that you may ask questions about because they're a little bit bigger. If you look at summer school, last year part of that was still being funded by ESSER funds, and now ESSER funds are all gone. We do need to fund the salaries for all of our summer school teachers. Another larger number that you may ask about would be on Fund 27 at the bottom. You can see there's $102,000 difference at Miller, and that was simply because a new teacher did not take insurance, and the cost of that position is being funded through Title I. So it's still being funded, it's just not being funded with special funds. Any others that you have questions on in particular? And if we go to the non-salary budget, very few things changed on here from what it was presented last day. Basically just two different parts, construction and then also district-wide programs. So we'll go through all of those individually. And then no no changes in, Fund 27 non-support budget. So on to the next page, page 11, no changes in the non-salary alternative school budget, nor English language learner, administration of the district, like our, property insurance, legal services, postage, workman's comp, none of those things are changing. I was asked, this is where, like, if you as a board member go to a conference or you go to, mileage or something, that's gonna come out of the administration of the district. And no changes in the health, or transportation budgets, no changes in the operation of the district, all of our utilities, still using what we believe will happen. Construction, I've explained the last 3 years that the construction budget is the budget we use to balance our budget. So if we have a really mild winter and our utilities are not what we thought they would be because we've spent less, we will then put that surplus into construction if we're able to get some projects done over the summer. So right now, we have $1.1 million sitting in construction for this school year, and some of the conversations that we've had about building maintenance and HVAC systems, especially at our elementary schools, I mean, I would imagine the board would be authorizing to use most of those funds this year. Our maintenance, no changes on that. The other change is in district-wide programs. We're on page 14. The $734,000 number, that's the school vouchers. That's the private school vouchers for regular and special ed. And then the other two are the transfer to Fund 27 to make that zero at the end of the year. We believe it's going to be less than we anticipated. And then the transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 50 to balance the food service budget is probably going to be more than anticipated. District-wide AV, no changes. Curriculum, no changes. Technology, gifted and talented, wellness, 4K, Native American education, and summer school, no changes in non-salary. So then page 16 is just taking all of those past pages of salary and non-salary and adding them all together. You see so much pink because there was salary changes in all categories. And again, these were just everything added together for Fund 10, our general fund, and Fund 27, our special ed fund. And then the last page is everything that we talked about, added all together, instead of broken down. So then if you compare the summary sheet back on page 3 or 4, you'll see that the 45,075,000, those numbers are the same. Questions? And then the last sheet on there is the annual meeting tax levy projection. And sitting right now until we know exactly what the general aid is going to be, our levy will be at $13,785,694. And that's an increase from last year of $718,000. If you take our equalized value of our properties in the Tomah Area School District, that was the $2.6 billion number. You divide those out, you come up with a levy rate of 0.00528386. And what that equals then on property taxes, projected taxes on $100,000 would be $528.39. Last year, $551.21 would have paid overall 4% decrease in change. Questions? The only other thing embedded for you to look at was just our 5-year forecast. Let me just bring that up for the audience. again, we partner with Baird Financial and they help us do some of this. So you'll see, this budget year, we have a balanced budget. And if everything stays status quo, we'll have a balanced budget for next year also. And then our operational referendum falls off, and it's currently at $2.5 million. So you can see the course of the next 3 years after that, the board will need to make some decisions about going to the community again or making cuts.
So, look for a motion to approve the proposed budget as presented.
And you
That's it, preliminary.
when you include the proposed budget and tax levy, we take it to the annual meeting with the understanding a couple numbers are gonna
It changed.
change. As a
Yeah.
general school.
Okay. And that's why I just thought it as presented, but yeah, so you can work.
Okay.
Yep. So motion for that? Motion by Teresa, do I have a second? Sue? 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 Yes. Is that you? Oh, sorry, Spencer. Motion by Teresa, second by Spencer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Katie and a second by Heidi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you all for attending.
Everybody, Thursday night, do the last update.